Que lo que mi gente, what's up everybody? It's your boy J-Rod and welcome to the channel. So today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the story time of when I moved to the Dominican Republic and kind of my overall first impressions. The reason why I wanted to do this video is because looking back, I don't think I ever really truly explained this on my channel, because when I started doing YouTube videos in DR, it was kind of from the perspective of me already being there, but I never really showed kind of what led up to me going there, my first reaction, what was going through my mind when I decided to get on the plane and go out there. So that's what this video is going to be about today. But before I start, don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. All right, let's go. All right, so we're going to take it all the way back to when I wasn't fluent in Spanish. So I did make a video on my channel talking about my Spanish journey, how I was able to learn it. So I will leave a link to it right here. But just briefly off of that video, I talked about how in high school I hated it, then I grew to love it. I went out to Mexico after I graduated, and I got over to Mexico, could not speak Spanish to the natives. I thought I was good at it, but apparently I could not talk to the natives. So that then forced me to come back to America to actually really want to practice and learn the language. I got into the university. I started meeting people from Latin America from my school. But the only problem was they did not want to speak Spanish with me. Okay, so despite the numerous attempts of me talking to them in Spanish, they would always reply to me in English. And I became frustrated with that. So essentially, that's what led me to wanting to go out the country, where I had no choice but to speak Spanish because nobody could speak English. Okay, so around that time, I was watching this YouTuber named Ambi Gonzalez, which she's my all-time favorite YouTuber. She's literally the reason why I have a YouTube channel. I met her. We done interviews together. She's a really cool person. And then she also brought this other YouTuber that I just so happened to be watching at the time. And I think she was living in Ecuador, and then she moved to the Dominican Republic. And I had been watching her videos for a while, but at that time, I really didn't know nothing about DR. And but I just watched her videos. And so at the meet and greet, we were talking, and, you know, she told me that, hey, why don't you move out to the Dominican Republic? She said, you know, if you immerse yourself in this country, then essentially you will learn the language. And she told me that's what happened to her. She moved to Latin America. She stayed out there for a long time, and then she learned the language. I was like, all right, bet. So during the meet and greet, there was a guy who was Dominican, and he suggested that we all go eat Dominican food. So that was my very first time ever trying Dominican food. I didn't even know about this restaurant. And then later that night, we went to a Dominican club, and that's when I was introduced to bachata, merengue, salsa, dembo, like all of that in one single night. So in my mind, I was like, dang, if this is what Dominican Republic is like in Atlanta, I can't even imagine what it's like in the actual country itself. So that's essentially what I did. I was like, you know what? After I left the club, I was determined that I was going to relocate to the Dominican Republic, and I was going to live abroad. So that's kind of like the birth of Dominican Republic on my channel, or that's what made me seek interest into this country. All right. So I started saving up a ton of money. I was working 2 jobs at the mall. Okay. Like I was just, you know, I needed to get my money up. So then I bought me a plane ticket. And yeah, while I was looking for places to stay, because I was looking at apartments, it just so happened that I remember Nibby actually lives in the Dominican Republic, the girl who I've been watching on YouTube, the other girl. So I had nervously hit up Nibby and I said, hey, do you think I could stay with you in Dominican Republic until I find my own place? You know, I said, I'm a neat person. I'll cook, I'll clean, I'll do whatever. And, you know, I really thought she was going to say no. But surprisingly, she was like, oh, yeah, like, come on, like, don't worry about it. And here I am, a stranger. I only know her from YouTube. I know that sounds, as crazy as it sounds, it was just like, that's how it happened. She just told me, yeah, like, come on down. She said, me and my husband, you know, we'll be glad to like have you here until you find your own place, and whoop the whoop. So that's kind of like what the deal was. I was like, yes, I got somebody that I know, and then I won't be alone when I go down to the Dominican Republic. Until literally days before my flight, Nibby's house burns down in Atlanta, okay? So the reason why she was in Atlanta is she has 2 houses. So she has an apartment in Dominican Republic, and then she has an apartment in Atlanta. And the only reason why she came back to the States is because she went into labor. She was having her baby in the United States. And so after she had the baby, unfortunately, her apartment in Atlanta burned down. And so she lost literally everything, all her passport documents, all the new things for the baby. And, you know, that was just such a devastating situation. And I was just amazed of her optimistic attitude, because, you know, to be able to lose everything like that and then just have a brand new newborn baby, and then your husband is still back in Dominican Republic, like, that had to been really hard for her. So I asked her, I'm like, well, what does this mean for me? And she told me, she was like, oh, no, it's good. She said, yeah, like, her husband's name is Wilner. She was like, yeah, Wilner, he'll be in the Dominican Republic. He'll take care of you. Like, I'm just going to chill here for a couple of months until I get all my stuff together. And then I'll come down to the DR later. And I said, all right, bet. So it was still on for me to go to the DR. But, of course, it really sucked that she wasn't going to be down there, when I initially got down there. Because now I'm really going to be by myself, all right? All right, so we get into the day before. All right, so the night before, I'm driving through the city, listening to the dembow music. I'm pumped up, I'm hyped. And, I still kind of do this to this day, like the day before I fly out the country. Like, I get kind of excited and I can't sleep. But that night in particular, like, I was ready because I had packed up everything. And speaking of packing, so I packed everything that I could bring. I brought my whole life with me to the Dominican Republic. Bro, I brought Timberland boots. Okay, like, you would have thought I was going to the Bronx, New York or something. Like, why in the hell would I bring Timberland boots to the Dominican Republic? But I just felt like if I didn't have it, I was going to need it. And that's exactly what I did. I literally packed everything. Suitcase was mad overweight. I was having to take stuff out my suitcase, putting stuff in my book bags. Like, it was embarrassing. It was crazy. It was around 4 a.m. in the morning at this point because I did not go to bed. I got to the airport and I flew with Spirit that time. That was actually my very first time flying with Spirit. And, at that time, that was very convenient for me because I ain't have money like that. And they actually delayed my flight 4 times in a span of like an hour. So they kept doing it in like 20-minute increments. And it's just like every time they delayed the flight, then I'll have to go switch the gate. And I remember the guy sitting next to me and he was like, man, I'm about to miss my cruise. Like, he was just going off about it. And I said, hey, man, I got a connecting flight in Fort Lauderdale. And he tells me, he's like, hey, yo, you probably need to go get that checked out. And I went up to the gate agent. I'm like, hey, I got a connecting flight in Fort Lauderdale. And I said, but I'm going to miss it because y'all done delayed the flight so many times. And the lady's like, all right, let me put you on another flight. So as she was, I think she was switching me over to Delta. As she was booking the ticket, the seats had filled up. So I was going to fly from Atlanta to JFK, which is in New York. And then from New York, I was going to go down to DR. But all those seats filled up. And then the second flight she found me, it was really weird. It was going to be like from Atlanta to Miami, then Miami to Cuba, then from Cuba back to Miami, then Miami to Dominican Republic. It was something crazy like that. I was like, nah, that's too many flights. Like, can we find something different? Then finally she found one. It was from Atlanta to Orlando. And then, but I had an 8-hour layover. So I was going to be sitting in the Orlando airport for 8 hours. And then I was going to arrive to the DR like 1 o'clock in the morning, which really sucked because I wanted to arrive to the Dominican Republic in the daytime. All right, so she finally puts me on a JetBlue flight. So she's getting my luggage situated. So they're taking it off the Spirit flight to bring to the JetBlue. And she's on the walkie-talkie saying like, all right, he's headed over there now. And I remember I was kind of speed walking to the little train. And the lady, she was like, no, run. And so I took my slides off. I had on slides. And I just started sprinting through the airport, and I was probably knocking people over. And finally, I was the last person to board the plane. I was all out of breath. Everybody was looking at me like it was crazy. But anyways, so I fly down to Orlando. And when I get to Orlando, that's when my energy just kind of started depleting because, I had been up since 4 o'clock in the morning. Well, technically before that because I had been packing and stuff. So I had been up for a very, very long time. So imagine, you arrive at the airport at 4 o'clock. And then you're supposed to get to the Dominican Republic at 2 p.m., but I don't actually get there till 1 a.m. So all that hype that I had from the morning, it just kind of just went down. Like, I was just like, bro, like, I'm just ready to go to sleep. So after 8 hours of sitting in the airport, I finally get on the plane and we headed to Santo Domingo, all right? So I just remember, like, I was super excited. And when we finally did arrive, like, I couldn't see anything out the window. That's why I wanted to come in the daytime. So I didn't get the beautiful blue water and the beaches and the palm trees. I didn't get all that. It was just pitch black outside, and I saw, like, the street lights. So the thing that I did notice is when the plane landed and I got to the little jet bridge that connects the plane to the airport, when I was in that little hallway, it was super, super hot, bro. It was mad hot. So I already knew when the sun comes up, it's about to be game on, bro. Like, the heat was crazy at 1 o'clock in the morning. All right, so I'm coming into the country. I cannot find my luggage. Okay, so I start freaking out. Don't have cell phone service. And so I'm looking for my luggage on the little carousel. It's not there. But then finally, I find it. Somebody had moved it. And that's what they do when you travel. Sometimes they take them off the carousel to give more room for the new bags coming on, so that way it's a lot more space. And so, yeah, I was freaking out about that. I was like, bro, I don't know where my luggage is. Like, I'm in a foreign country. I don't got cell service. I go through customs. Customs is crazy, bro. Like, it was so laid back, okay? The lady at customs, honestly, I don't even think she cared about her job. She was just like, pasaporte, pontudeiro aqui, bienvenidos. Like, she just was so chill. She didn't ask me no questions. She didn't ask me how long I'm staying. But anyways, I go through like one last little checkpoint. And then I get out to what I call the infamous red carpet. Now, I have in previous years recorded clips of me arriving to the Dominican Republic on several occasions, walking down this, what I call the red carpet. And honestly, I hate the feeling, bro. It's just people sitting on this side and it's people on this side, and they're like all waiting for their loved ones to come out. And it just feels weird. Everybody's just staring at you. And pretty much every time I go through there, I always just look forward or I look down on my phone. Like, I don't like the whole staring thing and everybody like waiting for you. But so now I got to figure out how I'm going to get to the house. So I'm getting on my phone, and the Wi-Fi is acting crazy. Nibby actually told me to use the Uber app and it'll go directly to the house, but I couldn't get the app to work. And so up at the front of the airport, I see a group of like 10 taxi guys. They're just standing up there at the front. And I'm trying to be like low key and not make eye contact with nobody because I don't want them to know that I'm not from there. But obviously they could tell I wasn't from there because the way I was looking on my phone, like they could look at me and tell like, yeah, this dude, he's definitely a foreigner. I was walking to the front trying to just kind of ease my way past the front. And as soon as they made eye contact, it was taxi, 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 taxi. Like, it was like 10 taxi dudes surrounding me, and they like pulling me in different directions. Like, yo, wait. They're like, where you going? Where you going? And of course, this is all in Spanish. And I'm like, wait, like I need to get the address. And one of the guys, he just grabs my luggage. The other guy, he starts pulling me towards the taxi. And then he puts my luggage in the trunk and he's like, propina, like tip. And so I give him a little tip, and then we get in the car. We start driving, and the taxi driver's like still asking me where this location is. And the thing about Dominican Republic is they don't have addresses the same way as we do in the United States. In the United States, it might be 123 William Street, zip code, this, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not really like that in Dominican Republic. They go based off of like provinces and neighborhoods and street names, but they don't actually like have a physical address. So sometimes trying to locate houses can be a little bit confusing, and that's what the problem we was running into. And so miraculously, Wilner was awake at 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, at this point, it's probably like 2 o'clock in the morning now. And I was just like, somehow this dude was up because I was supposed to be there at 2 p.m. And so he gets on the phone, he's explaining to him like the directions, how to get to the house. But the first thing I remember is the accent. The way that Dominicans spoke, it blew me away, bro. Like, I've never heard anything like that before. So like I told you at that time, I was high intermediate fluency, so I wasn't fluent yet. So being able to speak to Dominicans, it felt like I was literally talking another language. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. That's what it sounded like to me. You know, like they speak so fast. I'm like, yo, take a breath. Like, you don't gotta try to say all these words in one sentence, bro. Like, but that's just how they spoke down there. And it took a while for me to get used to that, I'm not gonna lie. And so finally we get to the house, and that apartment complex was this really, really tall building. We weren't necessarily like in a fancy neighborhood. Like, this was like a true barrio. This was like a hood. And so I remember looking at this building, and I had all this heavy ass luggage. And so I had to walk all the way to the top, lugging up these bags. And Wilner, he helped me carry the bags up there. But they stayed on the very, very top floor. So I don't know, I thought that was funny. He was looking at me like, damn, like how much did you pack in these suitcases? So we finally get to the top. Wilner, he shows me around the house, and he shows me my room. And then I immediately just go to sleep. Like, I just crashed. I don't even change clothes or anything. I literally just fall into bed because at that point, I probably had been up for over 24 hours. I was super, super tired, so I didn't even really care. I just went straight to bed and closed out. We're at the airport. All right, so the next morning, this is when everything just kind of clicks, okay? So I remember when I woke up and I looked outside the window, and I'm going to put this picture in right here because this picture right here captures the true essence of love at first sight. And when I looked out that window, I was just in a daze, bro. I could see the sun rising. I could see the palm trees. I could hear the roosters crowing. I could hear the people outside. And it really like sunk in that I'm in Dominican Republic. I'm like, bro, this is not a YouTube video. Like, it was like one of those type of pinch me moments. Like, bro, like I'm actually in this country. And every time I go back to that picture, it always like puts me back in that place of what it felt like. Like, I can remember the smell. I can remember what the weather felt like. I can remember the sounds, like, and it's just one of those things that I kind of hate, but you only going to experience it one time. So, you know, you can never recreate your first time doing something. It's almost like somebody that does drugs, okay? They get addicted because they want to recreate that high. And that's the same thing. It's the same principle when you are experiencing something like that. Like, it's a very euphoric feeling. And it just, every time I look at that picture, it takes me back to that place of what I was feeling in that moment. And still to this day, I have yet to recreate that feeling. All right, so I remember that morning I went to the shower, and that was actually my first time doing the cold showers with the bucket. And once again, very humbling experience, you know, things that you took for granted in America. And I think I wasted more time contemplating on when I was going to pour the water on my body than the actual time it took for me to wash up. And that was crazy. Like the first few weeks, it was pretty brutal. And I learned a little trick that if it was better for me to shower in the daytime because the sun was out, you know, so it was warmer versus opposed to nighttime. The sun ain't out, so the water was cooler, so I always showered in the day. But that was a pretty funny experience. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is that Nibby's husband that was staying there with me, he does not speak English, okay? He's Haitian, so his only languages he spoke was Spanish and Creole. He moved to the Dominican Republic, so Spanish is his second language. But he did not speak any English, and we're going to talk about that in a second, okay? But Wilner's occupation, he is a taxi driver or a moto driver, so he decided to take me to the grocery store so we can go get some food that morning. And I remember the moto, I was very scared on that. That was my first time on a motorcycle, actually. So I never rode a motorcycle. He was actually kind of laughing at me because, you know, I was like nervous I was going to fall, because one thing I forgot to tell you is that in the DR, the way that the people drive, I think I was more afraid of how they drove versus me actually being on a motorcycle, because they do not know how to drive in the DR. Like, everything is just every man for himself. And even the motorcycles, they will drive into oncoming traffic on the opposite sides of the road. So, you know, I'm just over here praying, holding on for dear life. And then after about 10 minutes, I loosened up and I started like recording little videos and stuff. But I do remember like that first 10 minutes, I was a little bit shook. You know, I was like one wrong pothole or one bad turn, and like both of us are flying off these things. And not to be morbid or too graphic, but like I have seen a lot of people die on those motorcycles in Dominican Republic. It's actually pretty sad. I've actually seen the bodies of people. And matter of fact, one of my subscribers actually died on a moto in Dominican Republic. He was in Sosua. So as fun as the motos look in the DR, they actually are pretty dangerous, so you got to be careful. But yeah, we get to the grocery store in the neighborhood, and I was just buying up food, and Wilner, he knows how to throw down in the kitchen, so he was buying food. And I remember when we got to checking out, the lady at the register, she had the worst attitude, okay? So this was my first experience dealing with the customer service in DR. So not to talk bad about DR, but I ain't gonna lie, the customer service is really not that good, okay? So she just had a really, really stank attitude. And I remember she told me how much it costs, and I didn't know how to count pesos at the time. So I'm over here fumbling through the pesos, like everybody's looking at me in line. I didn't know how to count the money yet, so because it was my first day. And once she realized I was American, man, her attitude changed so quickly, bruh. She was just like, oh, mi amor, lo siento, and, you know, just being all nice and stuff. But I do remember that I did try mango for the first time in that grocery store. They had like a little deli section, and that was like the breakfast because I was hungry. And I was not impressed by mango. And for people who don't know, mango is mashed plantains, and they usually cook it with like onions and vinegar. Like, it's really, really good. But that mango, I guess it had been sitting out for a long time. So I remember thinking to myself, like, damn, is this what mango is? Like, I've been watching YouTube videos and stuff, and I was looking forward to trying it. But that was just a really bad batch, because later that night, I went to another street vendor, and this guy, he was making chicken, and then he also had mango, and 10 out of 10, okay? I still to this day don't know the name of the restaurant that I went to. I've tried looking for this place, and it probably don't even exist anymore. But man, that was some really good mango, bro. I wish I can go back in the time machine and retry that. The second night, I got extorted by the cops. Or I think it was my first or second night, I can't remember. I got a story time about that. I didn't realize I was getting extorted until after the fact. But yeah, I did make a video about that. That was pretty crazy. But let's get back into the house, and let's talk about Wilner, okay? So remember I told you that Wilner is Haitian, okay? So in the beginning, I did not have Dominican friends. So one thing that people don't know is that the first people that I was really hanging out with in the Dominican Republic were Haitian people because Wilner is Haitian. So he would take me on a moto to like the Haitian neighborhoods. Couldn't understand a lick of Creole, didn't know what they were saying, but those were the people that I was hanging out with in the beginning, and they were really, 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 really nice, humble people. I think the beautiful part about humans is that when you break it all down to a science, you know, being able to connect with people on a human level, despite me not speaking their language, I thought that was a very fulfilling experience. It shows you that we're all people at the end of the day. So I don't know, I really did appreciate that because I know Haitians, they get a lot of flack in the Dominican Republic, you know, but those are some of my best experiences in that country, just being able to hang out with them and connect with them. But to play off the whole Haitian thing, so like I told you, Wilner is Haitian, and Spanish is not his first language. So in the house, Spanish is not my first language. English is my first language. So our only way to communicate was in our second languages. So he spoke Spanish. I had to speak Spanish. The thing about his Spanish is, although he was fluent, because he is not a native Dominican, he had a very, very thick Haitian accent, meaning that it was actually harder to understand Wilner as opposed to a native Dominican on the island. So when we would talk, I was really, really struggling trying to understand Wilner because he had a really thick accent. And the best way for me to break this down is almost like a Chinese person speaking English with like a really, really, really thick accent, or like an Indian person speaking English with like a very, very thick accent. Okay, so that's kind of like what his Spanish sounded like to me. So I could not really understand a lot of things that he was saying. And there's a saying that Haitians, like, they speak really loud, or it sounds like they're yelling. And it would be funny because sometimes he would tell me something in Spanish and I would not understand him, and he would just get louder. And it was kind of a full circle moment for me because now I understand what immigrants go through when they come to America. Speaking louder to somebody who does not speak English does not help them understand it any better. You're just going to be sounding louder. Okay, so the same thing was happening to me. He would just be yelling like really loud. And I'm like, dude, I'm still confused either way. So I don't know. Like, I kind of started to feel for the immigrants that be coming to America. Like, now I see what they go through. But yeah, we would just have like these moments. One day, Winter here took me to the grocery store and I gave him money for the gas or whatever. And I always give Winter a big tip because, like I said, this dude can cook. One thing about Haitians, they can cook, okay? I would always give him like a big tip every time he would take me to the grocery store. And so one day Winter comes home, he's in the living room, he's like, hey, I need money for gas. And he just starts going off about money for gas. And I'm looking at him confused. I'm like, bro, like, I just gave you money for gas money and I gave you a tip on top of that. So at this point, I'm starting to get a little bit irritated. I feel offended because it's like, bro, like, now you're doing too much. Like, you know, you give people a foot, they go a mile. And basically, he had walked away, and this had went on for like 3 days of him like complaining to me about gas. He just kept talking about money for gas. And I was just like, what? Like, what in the hell? Like, I gave this dude like more than enough of what he would have made in a regular week, you know, because I was really looking out for him. Like, I couldn't understand like why he was asking me for more money. So finally, I call up Nibby because she, you know, she's still back in the States. So I call her up. I'm like, man, your husband keep talking to me about this gas money. Like, can you please tell me what's going on? Can you translate? Because I have no clue what this guy is saying. And so she's on the phone with him. He passes me back the phone and she's like, oh, okay, I know what's going on. And I said, what? And she said, so one day you had cooked in the kitchen, but you didn't turn the stove off all the way. And so all the gas had went out. She said, like, all the gas had ran out. So he was asking money for the gas. I was like, oh, the gas on the stove, like the propane gas on the stove. And I'm thinking he's talking about gas money for the moto. And she was just kind of laughing. And the thing is with the stove, there's a little tick mark where the off button is. And if you don't line it up properly, like all the way, then the stove will still be on. And it's kind of scratched off. So it's like, it's really hard to see. It's a very faint line. And so apparently when I cooked, I didn't line it up all the way on that line. So the stove was running all night, which now thinking about it was extremely dangerous. We all could have blew up in that house and died. Like, so I'm happy that that didn't happen. That would have been another apartment that would have burned down. Like, that would have been terrible. But yeah, so looking back at that, like, God was definitely looking out for us. But yeah, so I was like, oh, my bad, I'm sorry. So I ended up getting him another thing of gas. But this whole time, this went on for like 3 days. I'm thinking he talking about gas money for the motorcycle. I'm like, bro, like I just gave you more than enough gas. Like, what the hell? But honestly, our interaction in the house, it could have really been a sitcom because just the way we would try to understand each other, like, because like I told you, both of us was communicating in a language that was not our first language. And sometimes I would even try to use the Google Translate. You see, now we got all this AI and stuff, so like it's easy to talk to foreigners, but back in the day, like the Google Translate was not like what it is today. And I remember he would try to like talk into the phone, but the word diction would be off. So he could be saying like, hey, I'm about to go to the store. But then when you read it, it says, I just bought a Christmas tree by the beach. Like it'll just be something random that doesn't make sense. And so we would have like a lot of those moments. But through time, I actually did start hanging out with Dominicans. And then slowly I started to learn the language, like because every time we would go out, everybody spoke Spanish. So anytime I got in the car, the radio was in Spanish, TV was in Spanish, so everything was surrounding me in Spanish. And it actually got to the point where I got sick of Spanish, okay? It became very overwhelming for me. If I could feel my brain just like stretching because I just got tired of hearing it every single day. And there would literally be days where I would just call my family on FaceTime just to talk to them or to somebody in English because where I was living, like there was literally no English speakers. And even if you did find a Dominican that spoke English, a lot of times it was very broken. And so it was almost easier just to speak in Spanish with them than it was in English. So I do remember like I was low-key kind of going crazy just hearing Spanish every day. Like I kind of got sick of it. And I remember this one time in particular, I was leaving a little metro station. They got like a little subway. And I saw this couple walk by and I heard English and they sounded, bro, I kid you not, it sounded like they were from the South. Like they could have been from Louisiana, Texas, ATL. Okay, like I heard the English and my ears, they just perked up. Like it felt like a superpower. Like, so I run up to the girl, I'm like, English. I'm like, English speaker. And the guy's looking at me, her boyfriend, he's looking at me. And he steps in front of her. He's like, she has a boyfriend. Like, he just kind of gets all mad. I'm like, oh, shoot, no. Like, I'm not trying to, I was like, dude, like, I'm not trying to take your girl. Like, bro, I literally have not heard an English speaker in a very long time. Like, so I just heard the English. I thought you guys were American. And then they were like, oh, no, like, we practice English at the university. You know, we practice together speaking English. But I thought that was so funny. Like, and they was kind of looking at me like, dang, like, who's this guy just running up? And that's exactly how I did it. I was just like, English. Like, I just, like, ran up to her. And she was looking at me like, what the hell? But that's how desperate I was to find an English speaker because I really did get tired of talking in Spanish. But eventually, I did end up becoming fluent in the language just after talking to people for so long. You have no choice, you know? Like, in the beginning, I remember I used to be so shy. And I'll be afraid to, like, ask for certain things. But then, you know, when it's time for you to get food or water or just anything that's a necessity, like all that shyness, like that's out the window. Like you're living here to survive, so you need to learn how to speak to the people. And that's why I hate when people who move to another country, they don't want to try to integrate with the language. I just think it's kind of crazy because it's like, how are you going to be able to live or have basic necessities? And relying on Google Translate all the time, you know, that's not really good because sometimes you might be in a situation where you don't have it. Anyways, I did end up relocating to go to Spain. So I got a job teaching English in Spain, which was really cool. I do have a crazy story time about that. So I will leave the link to it. That situation was a little bit crazy. I'm not about to get into it because, like I said, I made a video for that. So if you want to see how I almost was about to get locked up in Spain, now I'm just playing, please look at this video because that was a crazy experience. Okay, still to this day, that was like one of my craziest abroad experiences. But yes, I left Spain with the quickness. Okay, I got out of there. I quit that job, and I did eventually come back to the Dominican Republic. But overall, those were just some of my I guess first initial impressions of the country. Like I said, I have so many stories that has happened in this country. This video can be 2 hours long if I just keep talking. But I did want to come on here and just talk about that because I was looking back. I was like, I never really vlogged when I was first in the Dominican Republic. I just kind of talked about it, but I kind of wanted to piece everything together and give y'all like the full picture. But yeah, guys, I do like doing these little story times. But yeah, if you are somebody that is looking to go abroad, I say do it. You only get one chance to do it. You will not regret the experience. You know, I think everybody should get a chance to go abroad at least one point in their life. Even if you don't live abroad, I do feel like you should get out and go see the world. And so if you're held back by fear or you're afraid of certain things, You know, don't let that stop you. Like, just get out and go do it, because I'm telling you, it's something that you will not regret. But yeah, that's all I got for this video, guys. I hope you all stay safe out there, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.